Lakeside Dental Clinic, Go Island, is brought to you by Lakeside Dental Clinic.
Today on Go Island, we're at City Hall recapping the most recent Nanaimo City Council meeting. Tracks and tunnels are a focal point in this Gabriola Garden, a medieval festival in Hilliers, and welcome to Bowser Boys. You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. The two major discussions at Monday night's City Council meeting here in Nanaimo was a new master transportation plan for the city, as well as purchasing Lindley Valley. We're going to talk in depth about those two topics today with Nanaimo Mayor John Rattan. But we're starting off today on Gabriola Island. When you think about gardens, you might think about planning for flowers and plants and trees and shrubs. Well, there's a couple of people on Gabriola who are planning for tunnels. Here's Kelly Robinson. The Garden Railway is one of the stops on Gabriola Island's 16th annual Home and Garden Tour that runs on June the 22nd from 10 until 5, and it is one of the biggest fundraisers for healthy communities on Gabriola Island. We'll have a story next week right here on Go that focuses in a little bit more on that organization. For more information about the Garden Tour, you can go online, www.phcgabriola.org. One of the big topics, the biggest topic perhaps, at the City Council meeting on Monday night was the Transportation Master Plan. It was adopted unanimously, and it's huge. It's about more than just cars and roads. What does a Master Transportation Plan encompass?
Well, it's a document that lays out how we see moving forward over the next 25 years. And one of the critical parts of it is that we must understand we have to lose our dependency on cars. Something like 90% of all trips made are done by private cars. We need to become more dependent on walking, for one, not only because it's healthier, but it's much cheaper, but also bicycles, and then you get into, of course, city transit and mass transit. And really, one of the challenges at this point is that we don't have the density in Nanaimo at this time to really support better frequency or more frequent bus stops and users. So before we're going to be able to entice people to get out of their cars, park their cars, and ride the bus, we need to have convenient and affordable rates out there. And this is what the plan is trying to unfold, how we can go about it and how we can achieve those goals.
That's a long plan, 25 years.
It is a long plan. But you know, when you start talking about the infrastructure, you talk about the costs, if it's light rapid rail, if it's new buses, double-deck buses and so on. These are very expensive items, and so you need to work a long ways in advance, come up with the budget for that, and find out how you're going to afford these things, because it's all well and good to plan. It's another thing to implement.
Is moving tourists another part of a transportation plan, and the transport hub that's being talked about?
Well, you know, we've got that plan down there at the Wilcox Yard, the grand vision is a high-speed passenger-only service, the possibility of Via Rail operating rail service on the island again, and the initial plan is that it would start at the Wilcox Yard, right down on the waterfront, and go straight to Victoria very early in the morning, which I think is a pretty exciting option. We're looking at some of the short-haul buses. The RDN will like to have a transportation hub there as well. And possibly the long-haul buses, Greyhound and some of the others could also be there. So it would be a true hub for transportation in Nanaimo.
Now, I can't imagine that a transportation plan can exist on its own without buy-in from developers and people who are building residential neighborhoods. It all has to fit into the network of transportation and how that's laid out in a 25-year plan. How do you get everyone to buy in to make the transportation sustainability needs meet their maybe not connected needs?
Well, you know, and that's a very good point. One of the things we're looking at is possibly wider roads, because we're trying to look at dedicated lanes for cyclists. I mean, if you're going to try to encourage people to ride bikes, and of course this is Bike to Work Week this week, is very appropriate. What we're going to be doing, though, is trying to make it safer for people riding bikes. And there's more and more people are seeing them on the side now where they're dedicated lanes for bicycles. Part of the problem is, though, with wide roads, this is quite easily achievable. But a lot of the streets in Nanaimo are quite narrow and really don't lend themselves to that. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure people that are familiar when I say that if you follow some of the city buses, the streets are so narrow that when a bus pulls over on the narrow streets to let passengers on or off, the vehicles have to stack up behind it because they can't get around it. So what we want to have with the master plan is to say to people, look, plan ahead. That's the message. Plan ahead. If you're going to be building roads, plan to have mass transit, plan to have cyclists on there. And I think if you plan far enough ahead, as these roads are developed, we'll be able to accommodate the needs.
Excellent. Thank you. We're going to come back and talk about Lindley Valley purchased officially. We'll talk about the details on that after a short break. Still to come today, bringing back the Day of the Archer in Hilliers and a second look at a talented dog in Bowser.
Did you know that quitnow.ca offers a wide range of full support smoking cessation programs for free? There's 24/7 phone support, talk directly with a care coach, educated and trained in tobacco dependence, and motivational interviewing to help you develop a personalized quit plan for you, text support and email support, sending positive motivational messages your way, Tobacco-free Tuesdays, quit smoking for 24 hours, be eligible to enter some great prizes on the first Tuesday of every month. Go to quitnow.ca, change your life, quit smoking for good.
You're watching Go. It's a pretty busy place here at Nanaimo City Hall today. People are coming down to pay their property taxes. You have until July 2nd to do so. And you don't want to do it here in the City Hall building. You want to do it in the SARC building right here. Lots of activity in the parking lot here today. We're going to throw things over now to Derek Johnstone. I wonder if they had taxes back in the medieval days. Regardless, the Society for Creative Anachronisms brings the Day of the Archer back with their medieval-inspired Golden Arrow competition and medieval festival in Hilliers. Derek was there. You're watching Go on Shaw TV Channel 4. Lindley Valley is now going to become Nanaimo's newest park, and I must say that I was a little bit surprised because I did some stories about a year ago and it was pretty clear, and members of council, including yourself, were very adamant that it wasn't in the community plan, there wasn't a budget for it, and it was slotted for development. What changed?
Well, time has a way of changing things, and I think part of the reason a year ago was that it wasn't really designed as a desirable park initially. It wasn't waterfront, wasn't lakefront, it wasn't riverfront, but you know, it became quite apparent to us that the public was very supportive of trying to establish that as a park. The problem we had a year or 2 years ago when it was first raised was that we thought the price to acquire it would be considerably more than it was, and it's still very expensive. But on top of that, as we started looking at some of the different options, we had so many huge financial pressures on us at the time. The Colliery Dam, the water treatment plant, the new reservoir. These are all multi-million-dollar projects, and I myself was concerned that we were going to be cash-strapped to try to do this. So, but as it unfolded, staff came along with a plan where they suggested that in a kind of a mix of short-term borrowing and monies from reserve, rainy day funds, if you wish, that this could be done. And so,
and just to let people know, $7.9 million, roughly 300 acres. One piece of that property still sort of up for options?
Well, there is an existing option on it now that will expire July 31st. And if the previous owner, or previous bid rather, is accepted, that piece is gone. We have put a counter offer in, and we're hoping that we will get it. But if not, we'll miss a certain piece of it. But I'd like to get it all.
And development did start going forward, so there are some homes now going in there. It won't be preserved in the way that it was before any of this started.
Yes, but I mean, it's still a huge piece of land. And, you know, I really think that I'm glad now. I think all the council supported the idea to buy it. Now, once we were given a pretty specific plan on how we could accomplish it. And I'm pleased we did. And I think I'd like to think generations to come, they're going to say that was a good vision they had at the time, and I'm glad it's here.
It's a pretty good example of how the people can make their voice heard and actually cause change and have an influence on how the city does move forward into the future.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I think the other thing that came along...
Don't take no for an answer.
Well, yeah, And they were very tenacious, and maybe that's important. But the other thing is, too, I think when some of the outlying areas started to be developed in the Lindley Valley, privately held pieces, and the bulldozers came in and the trees came down and roads were put in, that's when a lot of the neighbors and people who were strong advocates for the park suddenly realized, hey, it's now or never. If we don't get going, these bulldozers are going to go right through the property, and that's the end of the park. And I think that's kind of a mindset we had as well. If we don't make a decision, a timely decision now, it'll be too late. Excellent. And we did.
Thank you. Another couple of guys who know everything there is to know about making timely decisions are Todd Jones and Derek Johnstone. We're having another look at the edition of Clock that takes them out to Bowser. One of my favorites. It's just such a great story. And did you know that when Mike, the bartending dog, was killed, that there were letters coming in, letters of condolences from all around the world? That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Lakeside Dental Clinic Go Island is brought to you by Lakeside Dental Clinic, a division of the Vancouver Island Implant Centre, delivering dental services, including dental implants and sedation dentistry, all under one roof. Clothing supplied by Catwalk Fashions. Kate's Hair and Aesthetics provided by Maffeo Salon.